So tell me how you got started in the wine business. What's some of the backstory?
I was hired for another profession, and that did not work out due to 9/11. So their Western supermarkets was needing a wine consultant. I knew what Cabernet Sauvignon was, and I applied.
Wing and a prayer.
Wing and a prayer. And I stayed there for about 7 years, which was boots on the ground training.
Wow. So you learned quite a lot during that experience then.
There was a lot of wine put in front of me during that experience.
Nice.
A lot of wine. So there was always somebody dragging a bag, as we say.
And that's interesting because I've learned just through absorption over the years about everything that I know about wine, and that's not a lot. But what kind of resources do you use? And I understand it was different back in those days to learn more about the different terminology and all that stuff, because that helps to take some of the intimidation out of it.
Just putting wine in a glass. That's the best experience, and that is the best way to figure out what you like. What is it that appeals to you? If you don't put it in a glass and find out, you might never find out.
I'll agree with that because generally my favorite ones probably aren't the most highly rated or anything like that, but it's something that somebody said, oh, you've got to try this and put it in front of me. That can get you in a lot of trouble sometimes, but...
Don't be sucked in by a pretty label either.
I know, that's one thing, because I know a lot of people that do buy wine based off of the labels, and there's some great artwork, but it's, you can never, as they say, judge a book by the cover.
Never.
And it's what's inside the bottle. Like, my favorite is the Freak Show Cab.
Okay.
Love that. And a friend of mine, we were strangely in California, and he said, oh, you got to try this. This is the greatest stuff. They're out of Lodi.
Correct.
And so we were down the street in Madera, so not very far from Lodi at all. So it was kind of like in their winery's backyard, more or less. But I really enjoyed it. So over time, I've learned what I like and what I don't like. But you're right, you kind of have to pick that first glass and just start with it and say, I like this or I don't like it. To me, there's almost no wrong answer. There can be wrong wines, and I think even if the label's pretty but the wine's not the best, but if you like it, that's what you like.
It's your palate. You're never wrong.
It's it, because everybody's tastes are kind of different. So I think that's important. The key part is to experience it and to try it. So what would you recommend if somebody doesn't know what they're talking about? Like if somebody walks into the store and says, I've never had a drop of wine in my entire life, what would the process look like to get them started or to work towards that new favorite bottle?
I would probably direct them to a tasting first, invite them back. There's a chance to have 5, 6 wines in front of you you're not committed to. If you don't like that, dump it out and go to the next wine. There's no charge. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. But once I know that and can see what appeals to you in a glass, then I know what directions to take you and some other things I might suggest to you based on that information.
Okay. So a lot of interesting information that you have in the background that if somebody's like, oh, I like this, then you can say, okay, your next step should be this, should be that. If you don't like it, no problem, we'll try something else. How often do you do tastings?
Every third thirsty Thursday of the month.
Third thirsty Thursday.
I put
like
a little
that.
ringer in there so you'd remember if there was a phrase attached to it.
Yes. And something we had talked about before was having the tasting notes. That's very important, so that way you see. Because wine is kind of, the depth of flavor is that you have a bunch of different flavors in there, and you're like, oh, I noticed that. I know it's similar, but a friend of mine roasts coffee. And so he gave me some, and he said, this is very blueberry forward. So sure enough, when I brewed it, then I tasted blueberries coming through. It wasn't intended to be that way. Just the type of bean produced that flavor when you put it through all of the stuff that coffee goes through to make it from bean to cup. And wine's very similar because it goes through fermentation, the type of barrel that you age it in, all of those sort of things. Differences between red and white. Would you recommend somebody started on a red wine or a white wine?
I would just start soft.
Okay.
And where are they and what interests them more? Are they more open to a white wine or are they more open to a red? But I would still start soft before I put something that was going to do this in the back of the glass. That doesn't appeal to everybody. So if you just can't be wrong. We can build up, right? We can start you softer, sweeter, and just kind of morph you up and into other things as we go along the process.
Right. So not having to start necessarily on the really hard stuff, the really difficult stuff. And for customers, it's great because it's not necessarily the most expensive stuff. Some of the best wines in here are under, say, $20 a bottle, even less.
It is a sweet spot for most of my customers. So if I keep that in mind, then I will be a little more successful, I hope. That I am market conscious of what I think my market will put on the bill, on the bill food.
Gotcha. Price almost isn't that much of a factor, but we're not talking like really rare vintage stuff that
No.
most people, you have to be really deep into it to really appreciate it and understand that stuff. So to me, you make wine as user-friendly as possible because it's about the enjoyment of it. It's not about looking important or anything like that. It's purely for enjoyment.
Yes.
So how long have you been open here?
I have had this right at 8 years now, which just seems like the blink of an eye to me. But I have sold wine for 20 years, and I've been in the alcohol business for more than 30.
Okay. And wine goes best with food, and you also carry gourmet food here. What kind of gourmet food stuff do you carry?
Wind and willow dips, which will always make you look like a hero because it doesn't matter what varietal you pick. It just is as simple as some cream cheese or sour cream and mayo, and you mix it up and take it to a party. I promise you're a hero. We also carry Wicked Mix, which is super successful, and have a lot of people that come by and pick that up. And I have local pepper jelly from Maggie's Farm, which is a fan favorite.
Okay, so you sell quite a bit.
Yes.
So I'm familiar with red and green pepper jelly. What are the differences between the two?
It really is depending on what you do when you're cooking it down. I have some that have peach habanero, pineapple habanero. I have a blueberry pepper jelly. So there's some other flavors, and they are local made with Maggie's Food Truck out of Southside. I carry that and her peach barbecue sauce.
I do like peach and stuff. It goes. We actually grow more peaches. I was told this stat one time that we grow more peaches in Chilton County than the entire state of Georgia.
I would believe that.
It really is the peach capital of the world.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't put it on our license plates like Georgia does.
We let them have something.
We'll let them have something. So my favorite way to enjoy pepper jelly, I like taking a block of cream cheese.
Standard issue, yes.
Standard issue. How else can I use it? Because is this something that goes on biscuits or?
I've seen people put it on burgers.
I've had so one of my favorite other burger recipes that I've had was, actually it's here local, it's the Downtown Chief. Have you ever had their pimento cheese pepper jelly burger?
No, but I know that people love that.
That is my standard order in there. They'll do it with sweet potato fries or they'll do it with regular fries. I like regular fries because it'll balance out some of the sweetness of the pepper jelly. But you get that peppery and you get the pimentos coming through, but then you get that pepper jelly as well. It's a must try.
Well,
anybody that I take to the Downtown Chief,
that's your favorite?
That's what I order.
Okay.
They can order what they're ordering. I'm ordering that pepper jelly and pimento cheeseburger. Pimento cheese is the way to my heart.
I have friends that make me pimento-free cheese.
You don't like the pimentos?
No.
Understandable.
So
my wife won't touch the stuff with a 39.5-foot pole.
I love it once you hold out the pimentos for me, please. And I have a girlfriend who does that for me every time.
Because it's cream cheese and mayonnaise and shredded cheese. You have to. You can't use pre-shredded cheese. You have to actually.
You really need to grind.
You have to grate the
yourself.
cheese.
It does make a difference.
Yes, it does.
Potato starch is on the other kind.
True.
So that doesn't make it adhere as well.
Yes, it doesn't make a cohesive, and you can't heat it up, and it just doesn't do as good.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your favorite food product that you sell here?
Oh, the Wicked Mix for sure.
Okay.
Still go back to that. And the dips, they're just a no-fail.
Great for parties. Have some on hand. Somebody's coming over last minute, or you get invited to some of the last minute, and then you've got these because they're all dry storage.
Mm-hmm.
So you just mix it with the required ingredients and go from there.
Another great product is the Al Underpint and Fran Underpint's seasonings that I sell that are salt-free.
Yes, they are. I'm very familiar. I actually won a gift basket from them, and I love those seasonings. They are very underrated. Al has an incredible story. Cancer survivor, also came through a heart attack. Just the nicest guy, but Al's Cajun, hence the last name. So their Cajun seasoning is amazing. I have a recipe. My wife picked it up from work and she brought it home, and it's okay. I don't care for it that much just because there's a lot in there. It calls for 2 sticks of butter. normally sounds pretty good, but it doesn't absorb very well. I have to modify the recipe. But the secret in that recipe is Frau's steak seasoning.
Okay.
So I'll put it in there because on their recipe it calls for anything that you like. So I thought, well, I like Frau's, so I will use some Frau seasoning. And it really wakens it up. It's called hamburger cheese soup. But if I add the Frau's steak seasoning in there, it just gives it so much more depth of flavor. Don't have to worry about the added salt. You can add salt if you want to, but the seasonings will stand alone on themselves without salt, and that's what I really like about them.
And if you're using 2 sticks of butter, you have salt.
You do have salt, unless you're using unsalted butter.
I don't.
I don't either. Love me some Kerrygold.
Here, here.
Yes, that's the best stuff.
Here, here.
Yeah, occasionally when I can get the Amish stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
Agree.
Kerrygold butter is where it's
I
at.
agree.
Yeah. So I guess circling back to wine, and probably the last question will be, if somebody doesn't know anything about wine and they come into the store, what sort of accessories would they need? Like, what would be your standard first aid kit for wine, if you will?
Depending on if they have a corkscrew and know how to use it. If not, I might, for the meanwhile, guide them to twist-offs, which are okay in the world. Don't be scared of a twist-off bottle. They're okay.
I've actually had some pretty good stuff come out of a twist-off.
We're running out of cork.
Really?
Yes.
Because I know a lot of the corks aren't natural cork anyway. It's been synthetic for quite a while. There was an episode of How It's Made where I watched them make synthetic corks. Fascinating stuff, but we are running out of cork material. So twist-offs, where do you see that going? Because I can't imagine buying a vintage wine, say, in 20 years that has a twist-off.
There have been some pretty substantial wineries that have done studies where they did half of their production in a screw cap and half of their production in a cork.
Really?
10 years later, they did a blind taste test to kind of see where everything was. The screw cap held up the flavor, the color, and the aroma better than the cork.
Well, it's kind of an inert material anyway. I don't think cork would impart any flavor, but I see that being more convenient because you can reseal it easier. And
Yes.
corks, it's nice to have a little bit of traditional stuff there, but corks can be a pain to deal with.
They also get dirty.
They do.
And if there's even a speck of dirt on that cork, it will taint an entire bottle of wine.
Yes, it will.
So there's the problem. You have at least one cork out of every box that will have a problem
So the screw cap really works out better for the consumer anyway.
all the way around.
There's no downside. It's just a connotation that people need to say.
It's a romance.
It is a romance thing because the higher end bourbon and whiskeys, they still come with a synthetic cork cap because you want to hear that sound when it comes out and feel fancy. But honestly, if you can enjoy, if you can stretch that bottle of wine out over 2 or 3 days, then being able to reseal it properly, storage becomes part of it too.
It does. It does.
Any other equipment that somebody might need to go along with that? Like, what about wine chillers, things like that?
I mean, they're unnecessary. If you have a refrigerator, you have a wine chiller.
That's my thoughts on the
So
matter.
let's start simple and let's see where you are. If you're buying $10, $15 bottles of wine, I might not invest in a refrigerator. If you're buying $75 to $100 bottles of wine, maybe we should guide you to do that.
And when you're talking about chilling, those are for white wines, rosés, things like that. Some reds are chilled, but
All wines can be chilled. That's
Okay.
just a matter of your taste.
really,
And if we talk about room temperature,
because I'm a room temperature red kind of person.
okay, well, the room temperature they speak of, you need to think about a castle with stone walls, stone floors, that it's damp, it's dreary,
Northern
and it's
Europe.
cool, very cool and damp. So really, you're in the 60 to 65 range for that room temperature, and you're not in the 68 to 72 range. It does change things in that bottle of wine. It puts alcohol in the back seat. It puts fruit in the front seat. It does
Really?
really wonderful things. It will take and change that wine completely. Just a little bit of a chill will.
I can see that. I know with bourbon, it's one ice cube in there to kind of cool it off, and it does change just that little bit of water content, which is, you probably still wouldn't do that with wine, but temperature has so much to do with it. Drinking bourbon over the rocks is popular, sounds good in movies and TV, but it's not the best way to enjoy it because it waters it down and it brings the temperature down well below 60 degrees and starts muting some of those flavors.
That's when whiskey stones are your friends.
That's when whiskey stones are absolutely your friends because they'll hold their temperature. They're inert. They don't impart any flavors. Mm-hmm. And then you can add the kind and type of water because sometimes your city water may not be good if you're putting ice cubes into stuff. The stones, you can rinse those off and all that. But then you can add spring water. You can add distilled water. Mm-hmm. Is really what you should be adding if you're adding anything to whiskey. But wine, you don't do anything like that. It's just straight out of the bottle. But temperature matters.
Temperature matters.
So what's an ideal temperature for a white?
Well, you can get a white too cold.
Okay.
And you can make it shut the fruit down. And if someone is pouring you an extra cold glass of white wine, they're hiding a flaw perhaps. So there's a sweet spot for that too. And I'm gonna, 55 to 60.
Okay.
Okay.
Because my refrigerator sits probably around 40.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a nerd and I've actually measured my refrigerator.
Well, there's certain things you want kept at that temperature too.
Cheese, yes. Especially I want that stuff to stay nice and cold. Any dairy,
Agreed.
things like that.
That can go bad and go wrong really quickly.
Yes, they can. Certain areas of your refrigerator are actually colder than others. So
yes, sir.
Is wine stored better maybe in the door, in the crisper drawer next to the lettuce? What would you say?
I would ask how much room have you got, really, because that's really what most of us are working with.
True.
Where have you got room?
Upright, on its side.
Well, and if you've opened it, you might not can put it on its side.
True. I tend to leave mine standing up. I have a spare fridge in the garage that holds all the
overflow.
Yes, all the overflow. So there's my sauce collection and things like that. A lot of barbecue sauce and other things out there. So that's my preferred method. I've got that extra space, and then pretty much when I'm cooking, everything that is ready access, I want that on the inside fridge.
Okay.
Very neat.
I'm a one fridge gal.
Okay. I get that. A little bit space limited in my kitchen, so I have to have a smaller one. But when somebody will give you an additional outside fridge, I have to take them up on that. Might have to move a car to put stuff in the fridge, but
well, there's no car to move in the garage because there's not room for one of those.
Some people, more and more. I actually fit 2 cars in my garage. Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. Well, that about wraps it up. Thanks for sitting down. Thanks for having me in the store and having a conversation. So hopefully some information will be useful for everybody.
Well, I hope so as well. And come see me at the Stone Market.
What are your hours and days that you're open?
Tuesday through Friday, 10 to 5:30, and 10 to 2:30 on Saturday.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely come by and see. I've learned a lot just in this conversation, and stop by quite often. Stop by for tastings, all of those kind of things. Those tastings are really valuable. That's something that when you stop by, you'll learn a lot. You'll find out what you do and don't like, and they're completely free. So take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Thank you.